Hello, everyone. Welcome to another day in Silicon Slopes. My name is Clint Betts. Garrett Clark is here. Don't talk yet, Garrett.
Hey.
Don't talk yet.
Bye.
No, I'm just kidding. Garrett's here. Show him. Show the audience that Garrett's here. Go ahead.
We don't have that capability.
There we go. All right. Hey, real quick. VIP weekly hospitality tickets for the Black Desert Championship 2024 Professional Golf Association Tour, the PGA Tour, FedEx Cup are available now at blackdesertevents.com. The full field event is set to take place on the 19-hole championship Tom Weisskopf Design Golf Course at Black Desert from October 9th through October 13th. This marks a historic return of the PGA Tour to Utah after more than 6 decades. That right there is an ad read. That's how you do it.
Dramatic for a morning.
That was so intense.
Pretty dramatic.
We have an incredible guest. Garrett, why don't you introduce her?
Kathleen Bodenlos, CEO of Discovery Gateway Children's Museum. How did I do on the last name?
You did pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I like the last name. I also love the Discovery Gateway Children's Museum. My favorite thing is when my family goes and they send pictures.
There's a lot to take pictures of.
Yeah, it's amazing. Let's set the table with the basics of where is it, what is it, and what do y'all do?
That's a good question. Yeah, a lot of people ask about a children's museum. So we're located right down in the Gateway, right across from the Clark Planetarium. And basically everything is geared for children. Primarily our sweet spot is 12 and younger. And everything is kid-sized and meant to be educational, kind of a gateway to other museums. We have a little bit of natural history, a little bit of art, a little bit of science, and a lot of fun, a lot of learning through play.
Yeah. If memory serves, there's a car, right, that you can learn how they work. And
there is a car, and interestingly enough, we actually just upgraded that exhibit. So it was a mechanical car, and Jeff Miller of Mark Miller Subaru came up with this idea that he would love to feature an electric car. So we were able to teach children about renewable energy in a really interesting way. There's actually a huge sun that comes on, and it powers solar panels, and then the solar panels power a battery, and then the battery goes to a charging station, and you can charge an electric car. So kids love it.
Very cool. I love stories of inventors or entrepreneurs that went to like a county fair or a World's Fair or a museum, something along those lines that like sparked their interest. I'm a little bit jealous of, these kids making these decisions when they're young of like, I really want to learn how an internal combustion engine works, or I want to learn how to fly and all of that. And they trace it all the way back to an early engagement in a museum. It's got to be rewarding.
Oh, it's wonderful. And, a long time ago, I was a kid too. And I grew up on Carnegie Museum of Pittsburgh. And that's actually when I made my career shift. I had an opportunity to work there. Obviously, I had to take a huge pay cut because I went from the corporate world to nonprofit. But I think I can speak firsthand. It shaped my love of travel and history and art and science. So I think a lot of kids get that exposure at a museum early on. I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Have you been recently?
Yeah. Yeah. No, not recently. But I've been. It's a great place.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the parking's great. It's easy to get to. But I'm interested in the collaboration with the industry of folks like you, right? You've obviously got a great background in that, but sharing ideas, a Cincinnati Kids Museum or a Los Angeles Cincinnati Kids Museum, do you guys all collaborate, right? Like if you're thinking, all right, we need a new exhibit, there might be a really good one in Seattle you guys could kind of copy and paste, right?
That's very true. I mean, one thing about our industry is it's very small, and most people get into it because they have a passion for museums. And so they're really willing to share. There's not a lot of IP holding at museums, which is fun. And so, we just try to build on what our friends are doing at other locations. And most people are really honest with us. Hey, don't do this. This was our big mistake. So we take all that into, great stead and try to come up with something that works. So,
yeah.
How many people visit the museum each year?
So we have about 160,000 visitors, and then we serve that many more externally, so through our outreach efforts.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty happening little place.
So is it funded through like private donations, ticket sales, all the above?
So yeah, we have both earned and contributed revenue goals, and most of our funding comes through corporations, and then of course we're always looking to enhance our earned revenue side. We do everything from obviously our admissions for the museum, but then also field trips and summer camps and birthday parties, and we have event rentals too for companies. So we do a little bit of everything to try to meet those earned revenue goals.
Very cool. You joined at a perfect time, right?
It was easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
That would be 2020, thereabouts, right?
Yes.
What was it like for you and folks in your industry to navigate those waters?
It was insane. I mean, I still question my own sanity to drive across country to Utah and work in a museum that was really struggling, like big time financially. COVID impacted our whole industry really hard, but especially high touch museums like our Children's Museum here. And, I was so impressed with our board. They were so honest about the state of affairs. That's the first step in a great relationship with your board is that level of transparency. And, I knew if they were that honest with me that they would continue to be that way with me as I worked as their CEO. So that was super attractive. And together with a stellar team and a stellar board, we were able to turn things around relatively quickly. I shouldn't probably say this out loud, but it even surprised me how fast things came together.
Yeah.
But it was mainly fixing things that were in need of repair and adding some new things to create excitement. And we were fortunate to have some early partnerships that really got behind the museum.
Very cool. What are some of the programs currently at the museum, and is there anything cool and fun on the horizon?
There is a lot of cool and fun stuff on the horizon. So our first phase of, I've been here 4 years now, and our first phase was really to try to revamp the first floor of the museum and enhance all the exhibits that were already existing. And then we also added a huge dinosaur exhibit on the third floor. And our goal was to try to keep that expansion alive on the third floor. And we have a couple exciting projects. One that is a quarter way funded, which is we're going to put an external garden on the museum itself. And that garden will, not only serve the kiddos that we try to educate and have fun with, but also it will help us with our event rentals. We could do weddings. It's going to be a good earned revenue generator as well. So it's like a win-win for the museum. And we have a lot of big funders who have already got behind it. There's still room for that, but we're well on our way, and it's an exciting time in that regard.
Yeah, I can imagine. There's a lot of moving parts.
There are.
Yeah.
What would somebody not know about what it takes to run a museum?
I think it is a fun job, but I don't think it's all fun. And
Yeah.
I think that's what most people don't realize. Some people even actually imagine me out on the floor, like hanging out with the families, which I wish I had time for that. That would be so cool. They don't realize all the business that goes on, especially the fundraising. It's a long relationship building type of fundraising, and it creates it takes a lot of trust, right, both in me and our organization. So that's a lot of the work is on some level either fundraising or fundraising to make things ever work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Fundraising.
Yeah, you
like
need a little of that too.
What is it like to work with the board? How do they work with you in comparison to like a corporate board in corporate America?
That's a great question. I think in many ways it's very similar, and that they're strategic and they're guiding. And they also have a wealth of knowledge that I don't have, just from different disciplines. For example, one of our early wins was I reached out to Red Balloon toy store owners on LinkedIn, and they took my message, and we were able to bring in a Red Balloon toy store inside the museum, which was a win-win for both of us because we have the same customers, if you will. And they were gracious with us and how they set up that structure. But I was completely new to retail, and so I have a board member who's amazing at retail, and he helped coach me through that contract. So that's like the best of my board is their willingness and their generosity and lending their expertise and their disciplines. But my board in particular is also fantastic about letting our team do what we need to do. So they're really they really trust us, and they know that we're transparent with them. So it creates this wonderful opportunity to move lightning quick when we need to be entrepreneurial, which we do, which might be another thing that surprises people about museums is that we have to be really nimble and flex with the times as well. And that means constantly evolving and asking ourselves some questions about our future and how we're trying to fit in the community and in the larger, the larger city.
Yeah.
Speaking of other organizations in the state of Utah, 2 Utah industry associations announced a merger today. 47G, run by our good friend Aaron Starks, and UAMI. That is what do they do? Utah's Advanced Materials and Manufacturing Institute. So they've consolidated. Governor Cox mentioned it. He said, "We celebrate the growth and development of our aerospace and defense industry, which contributes to our vibrant workforce and expansion of critical infrastructure." This consolidation is good, basically, is what he says. So, yeah, congratulations to them.
Yeah, I got emails from both of them over the years, and just by reading those, it makes perfect sense that this merger would occur. It takes away the redundancies, and it looks like 47G is firing on all cylinders. And with this, it's going to be great because it's a massive, gigantic industry, and what they do is equally as big as anything else that goes on in the state, if not bigger.
Yeah, it's awesome. And yeah, our good friends at Tech Buzz News broke the story, breaking story.
Yeah.
Their investigative journalism got that out.
Yeah. But, these people are dealing with things like F-35 Joint Strike Fighters.
Yeah, it really is incredible
Yeah.
what we have going on here in the state of Utah when it comes to the defense industry and aerospace. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is really cool. And then they're going to call it 47G UAMI Institute moving forward, which is great. Chris Stewart is the chair. Former congressman is the chair of this organization. I expect enormous things from them. 47G has a great website, by the way. Everyone should check it out.
Yeah.
It's a very well-designed website.
Yep, it is. They do a really, really good job of explaining what they do and how they do it and why they do it.
Yeah.
Clean and concise. I'm interested in a project or exhibit, right? Like, we're going to do this. You've got a plan a little bit. Is there any data that goes into it? Again, are you comparing notes with other museums, or are you just going off of gut, parents, kids? And ultimately, what happens when they don't succeed to the level that you thought they might?
Those are great questions, yeah. So something that I borrowed from other museums that I've worked at that worked well is we create task forces a lot around any new project. And on that task force, we'll have our subject matter experts. Like, for example, when we did our paleontology exhibit, we had the pleasure of partnering with the Natural History Museum here, and they're paleontologists, and they're amazing. And then we also bring in parents, and sometimes parents bring in their kiddos, which is amazing. Some of the ideas that came out of the task force came from an 8-year-old boy who was adorable and could, put us all to shame with his ability to pronounce obscure dinosaur names perfectly. Cool. So yeah, we try to bring in, and then of course we check out other museums, as you mentioned, and often they're very willing to share their resources, how they acquired certain things. And then you mentioned earlier about the generosity of this community, and in that particular case, I wanted real fossils in the museum. Prior to that, we did not have those. And we found a paleontology society and a man who had been collecting since he was 5 years old named Joe DeBalco, and he donated a bunch of his fossils, and he passed away not too long ago, but his wife generously gifted more fossils to us.
Oh,
so, it takes a lot of people to pull an exhibit together. And then, to your point, I mean, sometimes you think something's going to work a certain way, and as much as research and insight as you've gotten, it's always a little different when you actually get it out. And sometimes, weirdly, in a children's museum, we have to worry about durability of things, which is an added complication because, believe it or not, only, they might be, 3 feet tall, but they're really strong and they love our exhibit, so they give it a lot of action. So, sometimes we have to replace things or repair things soon after they're open if it's not quite, cured or what have you, sometimes things just happen. So, we can always go back and revisit, and we do, and we try to improve things as they're out on the floor to keep things exciting and new.
Yeah. Moving target with the flavor of the months of what people are interested in.
It's true.
Museums, as they are a part of an ecosystem, in particular this one, why do people need to support? Why do corporations need to support? I already feel like it's a no-brainer, but perhaps there's folks out there that are like, I don't get it. But
yeah.
Can you explain why it's so important?
Yeah, I mean, I'll certainly try. So I think museums open up people to different ideas and things they might not see. If it's something that's located in another country and you get to see it, you might not get to that country, but there you are. You're getting a piece of that culture and that entire experience just from this one artifact or a piece of art. So I think it opens up worlds, and it also gives us a chance to be a lifelong learner and to think about our own curiosity and what we're into. Museums are great in giving you these little pops of different things. And, both as a child and an adult, it helps you to kind of fine tune what you really love. And, I think people who don't go to museums are often pleasantly surprised, especially if I can drag somebody who's never been to a museum with me. They're often surprised how fun it is. They picture it like a bunch of plaques with words, but it's really so much more than that. And there's so many new ideas to discover. So I think that's what museums do. And here at the Children's Museum, we want it to be for everyone. So one thing that we've worked really hard on is our Museum Inclusion Fund. And basically that fund supports all kids to come to the museum, no matter what their resources are or anything. We provide, free admission and free scholarships through our summer camps. And it's just a way for kids that maybe wouldn't have that opportunity to get to the museum and have their own journey and discover. So that's really what I think museums can do.
Yeah. Of all the museums you've ever worked for or been to, do you have a favorite?
Oh, it's so hard. So I have pockets of favorites of each, which is, probably not the best answer. But, I think each museum can be very good at what it does. And like earlier, you and I chatted about like these obscure little museums that are out in the middle of nowhere, and the people inside the museums that man those exhibits are fascinating. Usually they have a deep historical connection or some kind of passion to the artifacts, and they can be as equally entertaining and inspiring as a really large museum like the Louvre. But I'm a museum junkie. I go to every museum I can when I travel. I even travel to go to exhibits and museums. So I can just say that I think every museum has great merit in their own regard. Something we're trying to do at our museum is we're trying to create truly a gateway to other museums where we're introducing young children in an accessible way to artifacts and art. And hopefully that just will increase their comfort level to go explore other museums and learn what they want to learn.
Yeah. I'm a horrible travel companion because I want to go to all the museums.
You just need somebody with an equal addiction.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I find people that are as obsessed as I am.
Yeah. Like a 3-hour drive could turn into an 8-hour day if there's 3 or 4 museums. And
you do have bad.
You find yourself being enthralled, and everyone else is like, "Gosh, let's just go. Let's just go."
True.
The day in the life of a CEO of a children's museum, I'd assume it involves a lot of cat herding. It'll involve some fundraising, but what does it look like versus a CEO of a for-profit, publicly traded or just a private company?
It's actually probably very similar. I mean, I think the connections you need to make and the you're as good as your own ability to share your vision and get people behind it, right? And so I think that we very much share that. Probably my approach is a little different because with a cultural institution, you're really looking to make long-term friendships with people so that they can inspire you too, and also help to support your mission in various ways, not just financially. And so a lot of my day is really just trying to make those connections, and I do it in a variety of ways, from public speaking to, honestly just attending events and making connections with other people, being in organizations where I can network and get exposure to other industries and so forth. So there's probably a lot of similarities. I think the difference is that, it's more pressure on me to make sure that I have a clear vision and for each project and make sure that I'm communicating that in a way that resonates, because obviously we're only going to be supported if we can articulate those things and explain why we're trying to do what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Do you guys do grants? I bring that up because Melinda Gates left the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, according to the headlines. And there's many billions there, but she's going to take, I think, $12.5 billion. Do you guys do grants?
We do. We're about about a third of our funding comes from grants, and it's mainly state and local. Sometimes, we connect with foundations who it's more like a grant, through that foundation. So, but it's about a third of our revenue, and we have a phenomenal grant writer and just a really good development team that can help craft those messages and convey what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Do you find AI might change the way grants are applied for and distributed and won?
That's a great question. I think it's a useful tool, but for what we do, it is so honed and so specific, and most of our grants deeply reference research. So the burden is on us to make sure our facts are straight and to double check everything. And so I think it's a useful tool, but I don't see it right now where it's at replacing like the talent of a talented writer like we have who can listen to all of us and somehow make sense of it and find the research that relates to it.
Yeah. Along those lines of not so much grants, but there's an interesting story about a flood of fake science reports in journals has forced dozens of these journals to close because they're false and nefarious, and they're just being filled with like gobbledygook of
weird
nonsense.
Yeah, that's
like,
fascinating.
Big numbers, billions of dollars, kind of an industry I knew existed, and it's been in the headlines recently of like people getting called out on, no, I don't think you went to that school, all the way to like, you aren't actually a scientist.
That's pretty scary stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Really?
What's interesting too is that museums have a big burden because weirdly enough, or maybe it's not weirdly enough, but it's true, in all these studies that they've done, museums have, people feel like they can trust what a museum tells them.
Yeah.
And they don't feel like it's, in a lot of cases, we're not affiliated with a university. So there's, in their mind, it's a very pure effort to try to educate and share science. And while that's great, it's wonderful start. It's like, it does put a big burden on you because you want to make sure that you uphold that trust. Right. So that's a lot of what we do is just verifying, trying to make sure, and information changes. So it's, especially in like a large museum like Carnegie, you're constantly rewriting all of the placards as they learn more and research more. And it's amazing how quickly it all gets dated. Yeah.
Yeah. Some new book comes out that's better than the old one. You're like, oh, dang it. We got to change the plaques. There's a lot of museums and organizations where like, you should probably just use Velcro. Stop engraving it in brass.
Right.
Because especially now with people being able to verify names and dates and locations.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's
very interesting. Target sometime.
What were you doing when you were 14, Clint?
I was probably playing baseball, something like that.
I was learning like my colors and how to tie my shoes, but
there's 14?
Yeah. And I'm close to learning how to
Late
tie my
bloomer.
shoes. But there's a 14-year-old that plays soccer. He's American, which is very cool.
Oh, that's cool.
And so there's a good chance that this summer he could end up playing in Major League Soccer for the team out of Philadelphia.
Oh, that's great.
And comes from like a soccer family. His siblings, brothers are already in the system. Parents were soccer players. And I think Manchester City has rights to him once he turns 18.
Wow.
But, if you might remember like back 15, 20 years ago, there was Freddie Adu. He kind of fizzled out. He had kind of a journeyman's career, but he was all the rage for a long time. Same thing, 14 years old. But it'll be really interesting if this kid gets out on the field.
Yeah. Wow.
14
That's
years
cool.
old. And
It's amazing.
that would be a fun game to watch.
Oh, that's awesome.
He probably knows how to tie his shoes.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, how do people find Discovery Gateway? Where should they go? How should they visit? All that type of stuff.
Well,
Corporate memberships.
Yes. Well, yeah. So, so check us out at discoverygateway.org. We have a wealth of information on our website, everything from how you can go about becoming a corporate sponsor, if that would interest you. We do get asked that quite a bit. A lot of people think it's mysterious, but I get it. It's hard to imagine something being in the museum that represents your industry without knowing how to make those connections. And then also just everything from all of our offerings, from summer camps to field trips, everything's on there. So, and you know, visiting us is really easy. Like I said, we're right in the gateway. The gateway has really come back. I think a lot of people are surprised when they come
It really
down.
has, yeah.
Yeah, it's really, you know, recursions down there and a lot of new shops and galleries, and it's very, very fun to hang out at. So, yeah, easy to park. Just park underneath and come on up to the second floor and come on in. We'll take care of you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Soon enough, you'll have most of the winter nights filled with either hockey or basketball too, right? So
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
Get a little twofer. Go have some fun, get some education, have your kids learn something, then go to the jazz or the hockey game.
Yeah, it's a great combination. We see a lot of jazz shirts in our museum on jazz days, and it's great.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
very cool.
Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for
And
having
thanks
me.
for what you do. Seriously, the Discovery Gateway is an asset for the state. So
Major
thank you
asset.
for keeping it.
Appreciate that.
Tomorrow's guest is Nate Jones, founder and president of Exlear Inc.
Perfect. Okay, we'll see everybody tomorrow.
Thank you.